I have been a fan of Ronbus paddles for a long time. I think I have around 5 to 10 Ronbus paddles now, and one of my favorite things about the brand is that they seem to care a lot about value, playability, and actually building paddles that serious players want to use. And that's exactly why I was so excited to try the new Ronbus Tenon. The Tenon gets its name from the mortise and tenon styled construction inside the paddle. This interlocking design helps create a strong, durable core, which, while the elastic layer around the joint adds just enough flexibility. Combined with the carbon fiber frame, the goal is to give you a solid mix of power, control, and stability on the court. So the Tenon is coming out this month, but here's the problem. I already really like the Ronbus Quanta. In fact, I recently ranked the Quanta as my #1 paddle under $100 in 2025 because I thought the spin, power, and control and hand speed were absolutely insane for the price under 100. So when the Tenon showed up, my question was simple. Could this paddle actually be better than the Quanta? We're gonna cover that and what surprised me in this video, because I believe Quanta is one of the best value paddles on the market, so seeing this new paddle makes me excited. Also, quick story before we jump in. This week, I gave the Tenon to someone who actually mains the Quanta. So this is someone who already loves Rhombus, already plays with the Quanta, and already knows the paddle well. And after playing with the Tenon, they immediately liked how it felt on the court. That told me something, because when someone who already likes the Quanta picks up the Tenon and enjoys it right away, that gives me a lot more confidence that Ronbus really has something here. Today, I'm gonna cover first impressions, the differences between the Tenon variants, how the Tenon compares to the Quanta in spin, control, power, cost considerations, and then I'm gonna cover which paddle I would personally choose. So let's jump into it. The public release date for the Ronbus Tenon is scheduled for Friday, July 24th. Now, I asked Dong whether there was a pre-order option for the Ronbus, and it sounds like they're gonna not have that pre-order, but they did mention that there could be an early release for Rhombus Connect members on Friday, July 17th, so yesterday. So I'll include a link in the description to see whether that applies to you. And you can also use the code RCB Pickleballer to get $20 off the Tenon. Now, there are 4 models of the Tenon. There's the R1, which is elongated with a curved top, the R2, which is the wide body, the R3, which is the elongated option, and the R4, which is the hybrid shape. Now, I opted for the elongated and hybrid shape. It's what I'm used to, and I really like to compare. Now, both paddles have a 5.5-inch handle, which I really like because it gives you enough room for those two-handed backhands. Now, it may look like regular grit, but the Tenon has Ronbus's nanobond surface technology, and according to Ronbus, this surface is designed to have much less spin degradation over time compared to just raw carbon fiber. They state that the Tenon nanoband surface may only lose around 8 to 15% over time compared to a 22 to 32% spin loss over time of raw carbon fiber. Now, obviously, long-term durability takes time to fully test, but from first impressions, I really like the surface. It felt grippy without feeling overly rough or cheap, and it gave me confidence right away when shaping serves and drives. Now, before we get into the Quanta, if this video is interesting or helpful, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. I create new content every Saturday, and I'm really excited to soon review the new PaddleTech paddle, the Franklin ALW, and the new Mizuno paddle soon. Now let's jump into the Quanta and what I really liked about the Quanta. Now, this paddle is very light, 7.6 ounces, and on the court, that lightweight feel translated into really fast hand speed. That said, you may want to add weight to the sides of this paddle to provide a bit more control. Now, with the Quanta, I feel like the control was excellent. Hand speed was probably the fastest I felt with any paddle, and the spin was definitely elite for that price point. And the power surprised me because that EPP foam core and thermoformed construction gave it a clean, lively pop. So for the Tenon to beat the Quanta, it had to be really good. And that's where things got interesting. So let's talk about the comparison in spin, control, and power, and then talk about cost. Let's start with spin. The Tenon had excellent spin. That's one of the first things I noticed when playing with it. On serves, especially my knuckle serve, I was getting more movement than normal. There were a few times where the ball hit the court and jumped almost a foot sideways. And when that happens, you know that surface is doing something. The paddle's grabbing that ball well, but doesn't feel harsh. Now, some paddles feel gritty in a way that almost feels artificial. The Tenon feels more connected. I could shape serves, roll drives, and get the ball to dip where I needed it to. Now, between the R3 and the R4, I would call the spin a tie. Expected the R3 to have a slight edge because of the elongated shape and extra leverage, but in actual play, I didn't notice a difference. Both had a strong bite. Both let me shape the ball well, and both were very good on serves and drives. Now, compared to the Quanta, I think it was really close. Quanta has excellent spin, especially for that price point. The T700 raw carbon fiber face grabs the ball well, and independent testing has measured the Quanta at over 2200 RPMs, which is super impressive. If I had to choose, I'd give the slight edge to the Tenon. I just felt like it was not a massive amount of difference, but the Tenon felt a little bit more controlled and connected when I was shaping the ball than with the Quanta. So for spin, I'd say R3 and R4 definitely tied in the spin category. Now let's talk control. Control is where the Tenon really separates itself. Now Rhombus designed this Tenon, I believe, to be an all-court paddle, and I think that that description fits it really well. The paddle gives you that soft, connected feel without feeling dead. Drops felt natural. I thought that I could dink the ball effectively from backhand and forehand, and resets felt easy, and I never felt like I was fighting against this paddle. Normally, I would expect that the R4 shape to be my control pick because that hybrid paddles generally give a little bit more forgiveness. And on paper, the R4 has a higher twist rate. That usually means better stability and more forgiveness on off-center hits. But surprisingly, I preferred the Tenon R3. The R3 personally just fit my game better. The elongated shape gave me a better directional control, and I felt like I could drive that in shape and place that ball more naturally than with the R4. That was one of the biggest surprises of this review. Now, the Quanta also has really good control, especially when you put that extra weight on the sides, doesn't kind of mutes out that thing, and especially for the price. I felt confident on all my different shots after playing with it and getting used to the paddle. And because it's light, if you don't put weights, you get a lot of fast hands at the kitchen. Now for control, I felt that the R3 gave me better control, R4 second, Quanta third. And again, that's not a knock on the Quanta, that's just how much I like the Tenon. Now, power was probably one of the bigger surprises for the Tenon. Going in, I expected more of a control focus paddle, and it definitely is, but I did not expect to get as much easy power as I did. Now, on serves and returns, the ball came off really heavy. Now, there were multiple points where the ball stayed low, skipped through the baseline, and became a really awkward shot for my opponent. I probably had 10 aces during my testing games, which might be the most I've ever had in a session. And that tells me that this paddle is not just about control, it also gives you usable power. And I think that's the key word, usable. The Tenon never felt wild. It didn't feel like a boomstick or a YOLO Pro 4 where the ball just sometimes flies if your hands aren't perfectly placed. Instead, it felt like I could generate the power, still knowing where that ball is going. Now, between the R3 and R4, the R3 wins power for me. The R3 has that higher swing rate at around 117 compared to the R4 at around 111, and I could feel that. The R3 produces a heavier ball, especially on serves, returns, and two-handed backhands. The R4 still had decent power, but not as much plow through. Now, the Quanta always surprised me with the amount of power at under $100. It has no business feeling as lively as it does, and that EPP foam core and the thermoform design gives it that clean pop, and it's just a really nice paddle. And I felt like it could accelerate the ball quickly. So for power, I'd rank Tenon R3 first, Quanta second, then the Tenon R4. R4 still decent, but if I want the heavier, more aggressive ball, I'm taking the R3. Okay, so let's talk costs, because the Ronbus Tenon is priced higher than the Quanta, and that price is $169 before the discount code, but you can use the code RCB Pickleballer and you get $20 off that paddle, bringing it down to $149, which I believe is very compelling. It may be the best paddle under $150. Getting the Tenon at that price point feels like strong value. Now, the Quanta is $119.99 before the discount code RCB Pickleballer, and with that code, it brings the paddle to under $100, and that's why I rank this as one of the best paddles under $100 in 2025. I would say both paddles are excellent value. The Quanta is maybe the better budget value, but in my opinion, the Tenon is the better overall paddle. That's the easiest way to describe it, but which paddle would I choose? For me, it's the Tenon R3, and honestly, it's not that close. I really like the Quanta. I still think it may be one of the better paddles in that price range. Even in 2026, we have some really fun new paddles. Tenon R3 just fits my game better. I got more reach, more leverage on serves, a heavier ball on drives and returns, excellent spin, and surprisingly good control. The R4 may be the better choice if you want a slightly more forgiving hybrid shape, and the Quanta may be a better choice if you want the budget paddle under 100. I'm just excited that Rhombus took what made their paddle so good and elevated it into a complete premium all-court paddle. Thanks so much for watching. If this video is helpful, please consider liking and subscribing, because I have a lot more videos to share and it's always encouraging to me. Please comment below if you have any questions or thoughts or what Rhombus paddle you want to play with next.